Thank you very much. I first want to thank everyone for attending. I definitely want to thank my students in the room because I did not bribe them with extra credit, and you will not be getting extra credit for this. And I definitely want to thank Cindy Donner for giving me the opportunity to speak for you and be the first of the Poet Series, which that's irony for me because I'm the least creative person that I know. My talk this period is bringing community engagement into the Capstone Experience. But actually, really what I want to talk about is showcase some phenomenal students that we have not only at Kettering, but specifically in the School of Management. And I really want to showcase the outstanding work and contributions that they are making, not only to their education, but to the Flint community. And this is a picture of some of the students that I've worked with in their projects, and I'll be talking about these specific community and projects that they have been engaged in. What I want to talk about, first of all, is just a brief thing about experiential learning. At Kettering, yes, we specialize in experiential learning, mainly the co-op. But what I want to do is focus on another form of experiential learning, and that's service learning. Now, we're doing that through our Business 484 Business Design Project class. That is the capstone course in our business curriculum. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the 3 projects, 2 projects in the past and the project that we're currently working with. And then what's big in higher education is assessment. So I want to talk about how our capstone and these community projects are assessed. And then finally, the future implications as to the work that the students and I are doing. Dr. David Kolb is highly cited. His book on experiential learning, which was published in 1984, has over 40,000 cites or citations to it. And in his book, he talks about learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through transformation of experience. Now, definitely when we were back in the GMI days, we were doing experiential learning, mainly through the co-op. But in his book really was revolutionary in bringing experiential learning to the forefront, where experience is the center of learning. Kolb's experiential learning theory is quite cited, where he talks about learning is a holistic experience, where we're combining experience, perception, cognition, and behavior. And that his experiential learning theory or model looks at 4 dimensions: experience, reflection, abstract concepts, and experimentation or testing. If we look at this concrete experience, it's the doing. When our students go to their co-ops, they're doing. They're actually doing jobs. They're experiencing what they saw in the textbook in real life. So examples of co-op, lab, and field work. Now, the capstone experience that we're doing in the School of Management is actual field work. So our students are doing. The reflection piece, and that is really one of the most important pieces in experiential learning is the reflection, because it's through reflection is where they're learning. So the students are sitting back and they're observing and thinking about what it is that they did. What were some of the insights? What's some connections that they could make? Abstract conceptualization, thinking. I like to think of experiential learning in this model as backward teaching. In our classrooms, especially in the traditional classroom model, typically we're giving theory and models, and then we try to apply it to the real world through application. Actually, in experiential learning, it's the application and the experiences first, and through reflection, we reflect back on models and theories to explain what it is that the phenomena that we're observing. So through abstract conceptualization, the students are thinking. And then finally, through active experimentation, planning. Now that I have a framework, a foundation, a theory, a model, I can either test it or further test it or experiment with it, or I can plan for any future endeavors. Service learning, and most of us are familiar with service learning, and I know as faculty members, some of us do engage in service learning. The Campus Compact, which is a national coalition, national organization. It's the largest national organization that promotes civic engagement. There are over 1,000 colleges and universities that are members of the Campus Compact. Now, pretty much every state has their own coalition. There is the Michigan Campus Compact, for example. The Michigan Campus Compact has over 30 colleges and universities that are members. All of the 15 four-year public universities are members. Mott Community College, U of M Flint, is a member of the Michigan Campus Compact, which again is promoting service learning and civic engagement. Kettering is not, but we'll see in the future. But the compact looks at service learning by incorporating community work in the curriculum, giving students real-world learning experience that enhance their academic learning while providing a tangible benefit for the community. Now, one of the things about service learning is that a lot of individuals look at service learning as volunteerism. Now, for example, at Kettering, I know during the freshman orientation, I think they call them the service Saturdays. And so we tend to use that word service to think of it as service learning, but that's not. That's volunteerism. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. It's a thing that we need to encourage all of us to do. But when we're talking about service learning, we're talking about an academic pedagogy. We're talking about intersecting community engagement or civic engagement with academic learning. So I like this definition a lot better. I think it really zeroes in on service learning, and I think it really zeroes in on what we're doing in our business capstone. Robert Bringle and Julie Hatcher defined academic service learning, or just service learning, as a course-based, credit-bearing educational experience where students are participating in a service activity with identified community needs. They're reflecting on that activity to gain further understanding of the course content, broader appreciation of the discipline, and an enhanced sense of personal values, as well as civic responsibility. I think that is a phenomenal definition of service learning, and I think it's a phenomenal and accurate definition of what our students are doing in our business capstone course. It highlights the academic curricular nature of service learning. It also highlights the importance of the community's voice in service learning, the role of reflection that it plays, and as well as just for students to get that civic engagement. As we all know, the capstones are supposed to be the culminating experience. Pretty much everything that the students have learned is incorporated in that capstone experience. So for the School of Management, our disciplines are rather fragmented. They're taking accounting, they're taking finance, they're taking management, they're taking marketing, they're taking operations, they're taking supply chain, they're taking strategy, for example. And the capstone of that culminating experience is really the first time that every discipline is brought together. And they have to strategize what's relevant, what's not relevant from that. In our business design project course, some of you may be familiar that 4 years ago, as a matter of fact, when I arrived at Kettering 4 years ago, the business department at that time, as it was called, was beginning to work on Business 2.0, the new business curriculum. It was designed to make it more STEM-oriented, a little more quantitative. So this was the course designated as our capstone course, where students would design, implement, document a project strategy. It would emphasize business strategy, would be multiple disciplinary within business, and that the project would be large in scope. Last summer, during zero section prior to the beginning of summer term, I was asked to teach this class for the first time. It was the first time that the course was being offered. It was time, we had a group of students that were ready to take the course. So I asked at that time, well, what are we doing? Well, we don't know. Well, I understand that the students are to be working with an organization, whether the organization was a for-profit or a nonprofit. Well, we don't have any. So we decided, well, let's just go with a nonprofit. In our business curriculum, no different than any business curriculum in any other university, we focus on the large, for-profit, publicly traded corporations. We focus on the GMs and the Nikes and the McDonald's. We tend not to focus on small businesses or micro enterprises, and definitely we don't focus on nonprofits. So we thought, well, let's just do something different. We don't know what we're doing. Let's do a nonprofit. Now, then the question was, well, who or whom? And so I just Googled nonprofits in Flint. I found a site that listed Flint nonprofits in alphabetical order. And so we came up with this one called the Food Bank. So I contacted them and said, hey, I have a group of students who would like to do something for you. Could they do something? And they said, sure, bring them on. And that was our beginning. But in this course, the students are acting as business consultants. So far, we focused in on the nonprofit sector. I don't know if we'll stay there, but it's been very interesting as far as community engagement. So again, the students are doing student team consulting. Now, research in service learning, there are some researchers that caution about service learning sometimes not being very organized or haphazard. Student team consulting has received some accolades in service learning because researchers do feel that it is a lot more structured. Also, it's a form of problem-based learning because these nonprofits have told our students, these are our issues that we would like you to help us solve. So it is focused on solving problems or problem-based learning. Also, what's interesting, student team consulting, I don't know if we're the only one. I like to think that Kettering is probably the only one where this is rare to see this in the undergraduate level. This is something you would see as an MBA capstone, not in the undergraduate, in an undergraduate program. And ironically, a couple faculty members have felt that our students might not be capable at doing this, and this should be on the master's level. I just love proving people wrong, and we'll see that as we go forward, because our students are extremely capable of doing this. So the learning outcomes for the course is that, again, that they're providing basic consulting services, whether it be a for-profit or a nonprofit, but so far we've worked with nonprofits. They're gaining experience in consulting as a field project. All the disciplines are coming together. We don't know what we're going to deal with until we meet with the nonprofit, but pretty much all disciplines are coming together. It allows them definitely to reflect, not only on what they're doing, but even on themselves. It's interesting that we all have biases, whether they're conscious or unconscious, and it's been amazing to me to see students recognize some of their biases and try to tweak that to make them better citizens. Also allows them to present analyses to these problems to the various organizations that we're working with. So again, the students are acting as business consultants. So far, we have completed 2 projects, and this term we've started our 3rd project. Last summer, we worked with last summer and fall. It started as a summer term, it transitioned to the fall term. So last summer, we worked with the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan. The Food Bank of Eastern Michigan, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is a food distributor site. They're one of the 6 large food distribution sites in the state of Michigan. They handle Flint or Genesee County up to the tip of the mitt, and they handle 22 counties, over 400 agencies, whether they're churches, soup kitchens, that they're providing food to. This past summer term, we worked with Factory 2. Factory 2 is a makerspace. It's been in operation for about 3 months now. If you're familiar with the T space in the Mott building, similar situation where individuals can go in and utilize some of the equipment that they have, whether to enhance their employability skills or possibly as entrepreneurs and they can't afford that type of equipment can go in and become a member and utilize it. So it's kind of like a tinkering space. This term right now, we're working with Habitat for Humanity. Specifically, we're working with their Restore. Most Habitat for Humanities have they call it their Restore. It's like going into a Goodwill or a Salvation Army. In this case, it's building materials that have been donated, furniture, fixtures, and things that have been donated and that you can go in and purchase. This is my group of students from, let's see, summer term A section that started the food bank project. So I have to highlight my students. Now, the food bank, when we met with them, did not say, oh, these are the opportunities we presented to you. They said, these are our issues. So I like to take the word issues and turn it into, these were the opportunities that were presented to our students to help the food bank. The food bank wanted to be known as, they wanted to be the number one, when you want to go volunteer, they're the place to go. So they want to have that recognition within the community. So it was to improve recruitment and retention of volunteers and then develop and implement some marketing tactics. And all groups of students have done this. The issues or the opportunities presented, think of those were the symptoms. But the students had to do a diagnosis. What's the real issue? We know on the surface they're asking us about marketing and volunteers, but what is the main issue that's creating this? So the students' assessment was they need to improve stakeholder relationships. Specifically, they knew the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan clearly knew and understood who their stakeholders were. But when it comes to managing them, they were not doing a good job managing the stakeholders, specifically the volunteers and the community. This is what the students delivered to the food bank. With assistance from our creative media team, I have to give a shout out to Matt and Brian Beck. With their guidance, the students scripted and storyboard, if I'm using the right terminology, and with the guidance of Matt and Brian, created 2 videos. One was a marketing video that the food bank could use to market itself, to present at, say, a fundraiser or to funders. The second was a training video. One of the issues with volunteering was the training was inconsistent. You could go there, students, even our students would go there and they're not getting the proper training. So to make training more efficient, the students felt that, well, if a volunteer or potential volunteer was to watch this video, then you would have an idea as to what to do. And actually, all these videos are still being used by the food bank. And they have said that the training of volunteers has cut down and has become more efficient because of that training video. They created a volunteer survey such that the food bank could send out a survey to volunteers to get feedback about the experience of being a volunteer. They helped them to develop a social media calendar. They developed a consistent email system. For example, if you were going to volunteer, you'd get an email saying, thank you for volunteering. We look forward to you attending. Then it was after you volunteered, the survey, and then say maybe a month or 2 later, a reminder that, hey, we would really like you to come back and volunteer. We have these events going on. So a consistent emailing system. And then also they recommended some volunteer incentives or just tokens of appreciation.
Thank you for your interest in volunteering at the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan. Because of volunteers like you, more than 330,000 people are impacted by the food bank each year. Every hour you spend sorting and packaging food, you will be fighting hunger and making a difference in the lives of many people who struggle with food insecurity. Volunteers are a valuable resource, and your well-being is very important to us. The food bank is a warehouse environment, and we have guidelines in place to ensure the safety and productivity of our volunteers and staff. This brief video will outline a few things you will need to know before arriving to volunteer. For your safety, please adhere to the following dress code. Wear comfortable shoes that are not open-toed. Wear comfortable clothing that is not baggy or excessively loose. Please do not wear tank tops. For your
These are the
convenience,
B-section students that were
volunteers
in the
have their
video
own
and helped to
entrance.
create the video.
You will see signage directing you. Please enter and exit through the volunteer entrance door on the south side of the building. The volunteer break room has designated areas for coats and personal belongings, as well as lockers for volunteers to use. We suggest leaving valuables at home or out of sight in your locked car. The food bank is not responsible for lost or stolen items. All volunteers are asked to sign in upon arrival. Sign-in sheets are provided in the volunteer break room. After signing in, a food bank team leader will provide you with additional instructions and guidance on food bank procedures. They will be available for your support and questions during your shift. For the safety and comfort of all volunteers and staff, the food bank is a smoke and tobacco-free environment. The food bank is subject to many state and federal safety regulations. To remain in compliance, we appreciate your cooperation with the following. Please do not eat, drink, or chew gum in the warehouse. Cell phones can be dangerous distractions and are not permitted in the warehouse. It is not permissible to take or consume any of the products that you are sorting. If you haven't already pre-registered online in the service system, please do so prior to the start of your volunteer shift. You may register through the volunteer page on our website at www.fbem.org. Should you need to cancel your scheduled volunteer shift, please give us a courtesy call at least 24 hours in advance to let us know. Thank you for your attention and thank you for volunteering your time with the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan. We look forward to working with you. Your time will be well spent making an impact on hungry families in your community.
So again, this was a project that started with A section that basically developed the strategy. B section implemented the strategy, and the students that you saw sitting at the table, the young adults that you saw sitting at the table and then hanging up their coats were the B section students. This past summer term, Factory 2, and the students that worked on the Factory 2 project, they're meeting with the program director at Factory 2. The opportunities that were presented to this group of students, Factory 2 needed a pricing strategy. They wanted improvement with the recruiting and retention of skilled volunteers that would show individuals how to work the machinery. And then again, developing some marketing tactics that would identify, attract, and retain members or their customers. So the overall student assessment in this one was definitely dealing with stakeholder theory. First of all, well, who are the significant stakeholders, which the students identified as the funders, the members themselves or customers, the Flint community, as well as the volunteers. What's the value proposition for each stakeholder? In other words, why would I want to volunteer at Factory 2 when I could go volunteer at, let's say, the food bank? And then how do you manage those stakeholder relationships? So we had another stakeholder issue with this one. The deliverables. From an operation perspective, the students identified those significant stakeholders and their value propositions. They conducted a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And they recommended some recruitment retention strategies for skilled volunteers. Like, for example, why not talk to the ME professors or some of the IME professors? Would they volunteer some of their time to be a skilled volunteer? This was the more interesting one, the financials. The students actually prepared financial statements. You cannot do a pricing strategy without financial statements. The students asked for financial statements. There were none. The students received a very detailed email that talked about how many members we have right now and the fee that the members pay and some of the grant funding that they have received. Well, that was just half the picture. What about the expenses? So the students went out and machine by machine, or in other words, activity by activity, developed the cost of that activity based on the material, based on the overhead, based on the labor. They also researched the value of those machines. Since the machines were donated, well then therefore what would be the value? So they did some research. And from that, they created financial statements for Factory 2. They also, what was interesting, I was just expecting a standard balance sheet and income statement. They overwhelmed me by nonprofits and governments use fund accounting, not standard financial accounting. So the students not only researched fund accounting, they presented the information in the proper fund accounting format. And even Factory 2 was overwhelmed because they didn't even know what fund accounting was. So what happened was the students gave Factory 2 a foundation as to where their financial, what the financial condition is, and then from that, they were able to develop a pricing strategy for Factory 2. When it came to marketing, marketing was interesting. They recommended some target markets, they recommended some strategies, but before they did that, they researched the demographics of Flint. This is where I feel the students had personal insight and some really, it hit them. Because for the first 5 weeks, it's all business. Then one of the students presented the demographics of Flint, and the students were really, I think, hit hard with a 40% illiteracy rate. Basically, 40% of the adult population in Flint reads at a first grade level. They were overwhelmed by the sense of poverty, looking at the median income and the poverty rates. So what I found fascinating with the students was that they researched how do you market to a population that's functionally illiterate, because they are to be marketed to with dignity and respect. So they researched some techniques and some strategies as to how to whether it's print literature or media, how do you present it in a way that is, again, with respect and dignity to a population, that has some literacy challenges. And I thought that was really phenomenal that they did that. Currently, our fall team, the fall group, working on our third project, we're working again with Habitat for Humanity and the students that are working on that project. What's been presented to them? Inventory management for all of the items that are donated. Logistics, dealing with warehousing and transportation. Another pricing strategy, and then also marketing. This is the students' assessment. When we look at pricing and marketing and logistics, transportation, warehousing, inventory, we're talking about a supply chain. So the students have assessed that the issue right now with Habitat's Restore is a supply chain management issue. And if we look at the donors are the suppliers, whether it's we're donating furniture or builders are donating material to Habitat, we need to better deal with the logistics of it, of not only getting the items, but warehousing the items and inventory the items. Once we have them, in order to attract the customer, now we're dealing with the pricing and the marketing. Also, the students have customer. The typical customer for the Restore would be a homeowner, would be a landlord, but they also said an artist who would come in, get some of the materials and create art with it. So what we did was we said, well, if the artist is the customer, then those of us that would purchase the art is the customer's customer. So, so the students have assessed that the main challenge right now with the Habitat's Restore involves supply chain management. Assessment. If we look at the Kettering University undergraduate learning outcomes, the mission and learning outcomes for the School of Management, principles of effective teaching, and true Kettering, where does something like this fit in, where our students in their capstone are acting as business consultants, and so far the organizations that we have worked with are nonprofit organizations, so in other words, engaging the community. These are the Kettering University undergraduate learning outcomes. We have 13 currently. I think we're working on dropping that down to 6. But of the 13 learning outcomes, I observed all but one, science, because we didn't, one of our learning outcomes is our students have a foundation in science. I didn't see that based on what, the opportunities that were presented. But when we were talking about critical thinking, quantitative reasoning, I mean, students are asking for financial statements, they don't have them, and they created them. Students are being asked to do a marketing strategy, but before you do the strategy, we need to know information about this target market, in other words, the Flint community. So I saw all of the ones in green. I saw a demonstration of these learning outcomes: leadership, ethics, teamwork. The mission of the School of Management is to prepare the tech-savvy business leaders of the future. And I highlighted tech-savvy business leader because I really feel that this capstone has captured our students in leadership positions. For the summer term last year and the fall term last year, each group, a leader emerged. It was quite obvious who the leader was. With this past group in the fall, there was not a designated leader, but I would call that it was shared leadership. Every individual took responsibility in it. So where there was not one designated leader, there was shared leadership. Now, so far, I haven't seen anything out of the group currently. I think right now they're operating shared leadership, but I think I have my eye on one or two that I think are emerging as leaders. But I really feel that what we're doing is a demonstration of preparing our students in leadership positions. These are the learning outcomes for the School of Management, and all of them, again, pretty much a lot of the same learning outcomes that we have in all of our programs, but I definitely saw a demonstration of those. Since this is the POET series, or Principles of Effective Teaching, my focus was to a positive learning environment. And I think that a positive learning environment was created. But there was also active engagement. I know I might be stepping on someone else's presentation, but there was definitely active engagement where the students are actually out there dealing with a real situation. In our mission, I highlighted extraordinary leadership and service, linking transformative experiential learning opportunities to rigorous academic programs. Now, in our history and our present, when we talk about transformative experiential learning opportunities coupled with the academic programs, we're talking co-op. I'm now talking ServiceLearning, and I'm now talking our capstone in the School of Management. Technological innovation, leadership, and service, definitely a demonstration of that. When you're told you don't have financial information and you're getting innovative to obtain that information, that is and that information is accurate. That was pretty innovative of our students. The true Kettering values, there was a demonstration of all of this. I'm really sensitive to the fact that the students recognize that, again, a community that has a high illiteracy rate, we still have to treat these individuals, they still have to be included, and as far as inclusion, that these individuals have to be treated with dignity and respect. I really commend the students for that. And again, I saw the others. And truly, this is, when we talk about our pillars of success, this is definitely falls under community vitality. Going forward, I have no idea what we're doing. Because as we have been working on this, and I have been bombarding my dean, Dr. Smith, with this is what the students are doing, this is the frustrations that they're having, and it's like we feel like there's something more. We feel like we accidentally have stepped on something that has the potential for something big, And I think that it does. I think that for Kettering, we could formalize and promote service learning as an experiential learning experience or option along with co-op. It would never replace co-op, but along with co-op. I think that we could utilize service learning opportunities as a co-op term. Now, we do have students that, like in their junior year, senior year, for some reason, for maybe an economic downturn, situations are happening where the student gets laid off and they do not have a co-op. This could be an option if we formalize this, where the students are spending a term as a business consultant working with the business students, and it fulfills their co-op term. So obviously I have to drop down to how do we pay for it. We would need to seek some grants and funding. And by collaborating with the Small Business Development Center, now that they are a truly partner of the School of Management, we can leverage our resources where the students are working not only on nonprofits, but also maybe for-profits. Scholarship and research. This has taken me into a direction that I didn't realize it was going to take me, because it has begun to resonate with me. So two things with me. I am hoping, well, I'm not hoping, I must. I plan to publish an article during this academic year on community engagement in business education as a means of achieving undergraduate learning outcomes and utilizing what we've been doing as the basis of my publication. I'm a member of the Quad Pod faculty learning community. This is my first time with them, and it kind of makes sense. One of the faculty learning communities is using community service projects across academic disciplines. There are 8 of us. I am the only faculty member from Kettering. If you're familiar with the Quad Pod, it's Baker College, Mott Community College, U of M Flint, and Kettering. I'm the only Kettering member on the committee, and I kind of like that. And I'm also the only one representing business, and I definitely like that. So as far as what we're looking at doing is we're going to work with the International Center of Greater Flint. They're a relatively new nonprofit that is promoting cultural awareness and be like a one-stop for our international students, our immigrants, and our refugee population so that they can assimilate better in the Flint community. So we're going to work with them as our community partner, and our plan is to publish and possibly present on our findings. My references, and I want to thank you all.